Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. Today we are here to discuss sustainable mitigation strategies for water. I am Dr. Anupama M. Hasija from Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, Department of Geography. As we all know, water is one of the most essential substances for the survival of life on earth, and it is only 71% that is surrounded around us, of which 97% is found in oceans and only 3% is fresh water. Moreover, 2/3 of the fresh water is locked in the form of ice at the poles and in the glaciers. Thus, basically only 1% of consumable fresh water is available in the lakes, rivers, groundwater and atmosphere. However, the rising demand of water due to growing population, intensive farming and higher standards of living is putting available 1% of water at the risk of scarcity. Shortage of water is a recognized global problem, with the demand of water expected to exceed by 40% to the supply, forcing half of the world's population to live in water-stressed region by 2030. Climate change is worsening the situation, with many areas experiencing prolonged droughts and some areas getting flooded, with heavy rainfall without adequately recharging the groundwater. According to SIVI, that is Stockholm International Water Institute, nearly 1/5 of the world's total population lives in physical water scarcity. Now, what is water scarcity? Water scarcity is declared when the demand of all sectors, including industry, agriculture, domestic and even environment, cannot be met satisfactorily in terms of quantity or quality, or both, by the available institutional arrangement of water. Water scarcity regions are identified as areas where water resource scarcity has exceeded or about to exceed the sustainable level for consumption and economic development. The projected gap of 40% between demand and supply of water by 2030 makes it indispensable to conserve water for future generations. What are the impediments to sustainable management of water resource? Conservation of water and its sustainable usage is undoubtedly the most critical thing that the world needs to consider to save ourselves from water stress situation in the future. However, sustainable management of water is not an easy task. With ever increasing population, changing climatic pattern, growing economic development and varied distribution of water resources. In fact, economic growth, higher living standards, rapid urbanization and excessive demand by growing population have put extra pressure on the already burdened water resource. In addition, pollution and wastage of water makes it even tougher to develop sustainable water management practices. Hence, most decisions on sustainable mitigation strategies for water nationally or internationally are mainly driven by short-term political, social and economic requirements and considerations, neglecting the long-term impacts. Ideally, the sustainable management plan for water resource should include the combination of best prevailing practices with innovative scientific developments. The decision makers need to look beyond the present need and develop long-term integrated approach by considering the recommendation of the scientific committees to deal with the water management challenges. All sections of society need to realize that current water-related hardships cannot be addressed by short-term measures. Everyone needs to work together to solve the impending crisis of water scarcity. More funds and technical upgradation is required to collect water-related actual information and data, and accordingly new schemes and strategies can be worked out for a better future. Now, natural water resource, what is its status? To understand the status of water resources globally and set water mitigation strategies and policies, we need to appreciate the roles of different components of water cycle, that are evaporation, precipitation and condensation. Each part of the hydrological cycle has a specific role in varied distribution of water resources. Precipitation in all forms replenishes various sources of water on the earth. For instance, rainwater directly replenishes rivers, lakes, underground aquifers, seas and oceans, and melting snow or glaciers create seasonal streams. Evaporation provides water vapor into the atmosphere, which plays significant role in regulating the climatic pattern of a region. Agricultural development, economic growth, vibrant ecosystems and biodiversity are supported by water resources. Thus, a wide-ranging global assessment is required to plan water management strategies or policies. With the current technological know-how, scientists can provide short-term solutions to control surface runoff in water-stressed regions. However, prediction of climate changes and its effect on water resource for a time that is long is still a challenge. Rainwater harvesting, recharging of groundwater aquifers by excess surface water runoff are some measures that can be taken to ease the impact of climatic variance on water resources, such as during wet periods or monsoon season, rainwater can be stored in a variety of ways. Aquifers could be recharged by letting surface runoff reach underground to meet the demand during the dry periods. However, the major obstacle in maintaining water resources is that not enough data is available, especially in developing countries of Africa and Asia, where water monitoring systems are not fully developed. Even monitoring water quality is not an easy task in the developing countries. With lack of proper technology, thus human health is at high risk in these countries. Despite international attention and scientific intervention, collection and compiling of data on pollution level of water is still at a nascent stage. Now let's come to the effects. What are the effects of this water scarcity? Substandard water quality and irregular supply of water are major obstacles to economic development of a region and can have adverse impacts on living standards and health of its people. Moreover, interference and changes on Earth's landscape by humans disrupt the flow of natural water cycle and functioning of the ecosystem, which makes it more difficult to predict the effects of climate change on water resources. We understand the difficulties to estimate impact of climate changes on water resources at global level due to inadequate data on water resources. However, analyzing the impacts on water quality and quantity due to excessive pollution, excessive wastages and surface water removal can now be done at local level with current technical knowledge. In the developing countries, apart from technological advancement and innovation, adequate funding is required to reduce impact on water quantity and quality. In general, water management programs need to emerge with emphasis on sustainable practices to save the water resource for a happy tomorrow. In recent years, due to public awareness and government initiative, steps have been taken to reduce wastewater as a part of conservative strategy, but still more efficiency is required in water conservation. Saving water by demand reduction and less wastage helps in reducing the cost factor involved in water treatment plants and infrastructural development for increasing water supply and thus brings economic benefits. Conservation of water by reducing its demand should be accepted wholeheartedly and made an important part of contemporary water management. Its benefits should be promoted and people, societies and institutes should be educated about the same for effective application. Many countries have applied new regulations and policies for protecting natural water resources. Several nations are implementing newer technical practices and local customary approaches to protect the available stock of water resources as a part of effective water management initiative. Now let's come to the benefits. According to UNESCO IHE, which stands for Institute for Hydraulic Engineering, water resource assessments, that is WRA, aims to measure quantity and quality of the water in the system, including data collection, data validation and water accounting techniques using both ground and remote sensing. Periodic WRA is carried out on all basins and groundwater in a nation or a region bring environmental, social and economic benefits. Water resource assessment is done using contemporary approaches. Age-old hydraulic methods are not allowed. For collection of actual data on water resources for WRAs, water cycle component data is required, without which the evaluation report will be unreliable. WRAs should incorporate well-drafted demand report of users in terms of quality and quantity, accurate data on consumption, approximate data on volumes of environmental flow to maintain ecosystems, identification of both the point and non-point sources of contamination of water and the quality of water used by consumers. WRA's report should look for new technologies to increase the natural water resources to meet growing demand of the same. A detailed WRA must consider economic and social factors along with the need of biodiversity and ecosystems. Climatic changes can bring in more erratic weather conditions such as varied distribution of precipitation, which will lead to lesser crop yield while putting more than 1 billion people at risk of water scarcity. Thus, understanding the water cycle is very important to be able to handle all kinds of climatic challenges. Saving water and reduction on demand are measures in water stress regions to overcome the problem. Water demand management approach is crucial for effective management of water. Unlike the earlier methods of supplying all existing water, WDM offers incentives for efficient and sustainable usages of water. It focuses on water saving measures by raising people's awareness about scarcity of fresh water on the earth. Unfortunately, the conservation measures are restricted only to water stress regions and have not been applied in areas with more water abundance. On the environment front, water conservation methods supports the division of extra volumes of water to cultivate ecosystems, maintain ecological balance and also reduce the level of loads of pollution in rivers. groundwater and lakes and thus protects the fresh water. WDM applies varied strategies, supports sustainable water management by saving the water from getting polluted, by reducing the wastage of water at infrastructural and consumers' end, by judicial distribution of water, and by putting a price mechanism in place as per water usages. Water conservation methods need to be stringent in case of wastage due to leakages. Most of the time, water is distributed through degraded, rusted pipes that leads to leakages and undelivery. Leaked water is often unaccounted and results in shortage of water and economic losses. Water management is often impacted by inefficiencies in operation that causes loss of about 40% on an average. Many cities have even reported losses up to 70%. This problem is widespread and affects societies of all nations. Furthermore, water can be saved at household levels by controlling usages. Public awareness about water conservation benefits have motivated people world over to reduce water wastages, and reduction in 40% of demand has been noted. These observations explain most of the water that is supplied may not be necessarily be required. By controlling demands and wastages, volumes of available natural water resource can be maintained. Thus, these aspects should be considered while setting strategies. The 1992 UN conference at Rio de Janeiro focused on environment and sustainable development. Since then, in most of the UN conferences, water resource scarcity and its sustainable management has been discussed. The International Decade for Action, Water for Life 2005 to 2015 was a decade dedicated to programs and projects for sustainable development of water resource globally. Post-Dublin Conference, water was recognized as economic good for its proper conservation and equitable usage. These days, water resource is considered in the broader spectrum of social parity, ecosystem balance, and economics. The contemporary WRA process can be used to maintain balance among all these. Water resource assessments are done to analyze the availability of water resource and potential demand of the users. WRA requires data collected from different components of hydrological cycle along with the other information. However, the challenge is to get accurate hydrological data as various factors determine the precision of data, including presence of various gauging stations within a region, time given in collection of data, continuity of observations, data processing, and quality. The parameters that are considered in a WRA are precipitation level, evaporation, moisture in the atmosphere, soil, depth of groundwater aquifers and river waters, distribution of water, quality of water, and data on contamination of water on a constant basis. However, since mid-1980s, the reliability and availability of data has witnessed a sharp decline, especially in Africa and Eastern Europe. But situation more or less similar even in the present century. Availability of funds has declined for development of national network and still falling. WRA derives its general input from hydrometric networks, which is expensive to maintain, but apart from that, no other WRA data is available. In integrated water resource management, that is IWRM principle, it was internationally agreed to develop river basin analysis type of approach, which will be decentralized for WRAs, that is water resource assessments. The World Water Assessment Program is to aim support partner countries in evolving their individual assessment ability. Although independence and healthy competition will remain major aspects in dealing with water resources. The general WRA scope, which describes the magnitude of availability of good quality water, including features related to pollution, water usage and environment, is the foundation for efficient management. This information can be gathered individually or cooperatively by countries sharing the same natural resources. Moreover, information on natural water resource will benefit mankind, society and environment at large. Improving integration of policies between water, agriculture, environment and energy policies. Most often than not, policies in agriculture, environment, water and energy are framed haphazardly without considering their interrelations. This situation has been noticed in many Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries that are OECD. Integration of policies at all levels of decision making, from international to national and local areas, is still a task for many countries. Policy integration is part of broader national framework where decision is also taken about allocation of water to different zones and for different purposes. More unified policy approaches are now being considered by countries. For instance, due to unpredictable climate changes, countries started to integrate water policies with droughts and flood control policies, which were earlier dealt separately. For example, afforestation in the catchment areas of rivers have not only reduced flood occurrences in that region, but also improved biodiversity and water quality of the area. In many OECD countries, the policies related to agriculture and environment provides both motivations and discouragement towards water management. For instance, giving market price for livestock and crop production motivates farmers to increase agricultural production. However, lowering water cost and giving subsidies for irrigation and energy infrastructure as support for farming might lead to rise in misuse of water, water pollution and environmental damages, hence offset the farmers' incentives. In the last 2 decades, however, some changes in agricultural policies have been noticed, with most OECD countries reducing supports in farm inputs, mainly uncontrolled usages of water as reported by producers' support estimates by OECD countries. This shift in policy approach leading to conservation of quantity and quality of water and protection of the environment is, however, not clearly identified, as direct cause and impact results here are multifaceted. To what extent the environment will gain from shifting the agricultural policy approach may depend on the use of conserved water. For instance, if the conserved water is used for production of water-intensive crops, then the environment might not gain from this approach. To conclude, it can be stated that the policy change has chances of both positive and deterrent effect on water resources, such as lowering subsidies in water usages will lead to reduction of water wastages, especially in water stress areas. Energy support given in agriculture by direct support or help for electricity and diesel use, and indirect support in the form of fodder stocks to produce bioenergy and fuel can put extra load on water resources. Also, subsidies given on pumping expenses for agricultural benefits in some nations have put extra burden on groundwater withdrawal. This reduction in this type of support may bring in sustainable water use in agriculture. The impact on water quantity for providing fodder support to produce bioenergy and fuel, however, is yet to be determined. Detailed analysis suggests that the water quantity required for generation of each unit of energy from fodder stocks at different locations may vary. Thus, identifying economic and environmental impact of agro-environmental support on natural water resources is difficult. Now, mitigation strategies for the threat of water shortages. Sustainable usages of water are important for water scarce as well as surplus regions. However, these countries which face acute stress of water need to follow water management more rigorously to mitigate the risk of water scarcity. Water scarcity impact is not only restricted to demand of this resource but also widely impacts the environment and food security. Many countries in the world already face extreme water shortage and some are even importing water. However, unlike natural disasters like flood, earthquake, cyclone, etc., water scarcity does not always get immediate response from governing authorities. Thus, water risk mitigation strategies to avoid water stress are all the more important to be practiced. Water scarcity might not impact or damage buildings and other structures, but its impact can stretch for a longer period of time. Water scarcity, apart from impacting domestic, commercial and agricultural sectors, majorly affects the environmental balance. Water resource mitigation plan needs to emphasize on sustainability, wherein water deficiency risk mitigation should be done in accordance with the other physical and natural resources. Following are some of the mitigation strategies for precarious water deficient situations which can be followed globally as per requirement. Number 1. Avoid tapping groundwater resource unless very critical situation. Water desalination should be done to get fresh water from ocean and seawater. Rainwater harvesting should be done as water is too precious to be wasted. Controlling pollution, especially water pollution, at all levels is very important. Wastewater should be treated and water resource should be reused wherever possible. Water footprint needs to be measured to assess the amount of fresh water required to produce goods. Water footprint yardsticks for crop production that will reflect justifiable water usage per production needs to be developed, and effective crop management and irrigation techniques need to be worked upon to achieve those sustainable water footprint yardsticks. Water should be judiciously allocated, priority should be given to domestic users, and remaining water should be utilized for production of crops and other products which requires lower amount of water. Educate people about reducing wastage, reusing water and sustainable consumption pattern of water. Apart from the above mentioned strategies which can be followed to mitigate threats of extreme water shortages, countries can develop their own national water policies and management plans to secure their valuable resource. Developing water management plans. As we know, the natural freshwater resource is available at a limited quantity on the earth. Hence, for judiciously managing the available resource to meet the demands of all the sectors such as industries, societies and the environment, and to avoid risk of extreme water shortages, a strategic management plan has to be put in place. However, to outline a comprehensive approach which will support environment, social and economic sectors, as well as endorse sustainable usage of water resource, policymakers need to have options of different management tools, including public awareness, advocacy, instrumental designs, and economic tools for consideration. Moreover, prior attention to the weaker section of the society should be given to make sure they benefit from the management strategies. Though defining management strategies keeping in mind benefits for all sectors at one attempt will have its share of constraints. But there are areas where intersectoral strategies or policies can be worked upon, such as increase public awareness through education and identify the needs of specific sectors of the society, such as women and weaker sections, at all levels from local, regional to national and international level. Secondly, build capability by supporting participatory structures, cultivating water management skills and encouraging community ownership. Also, encouraging private industries to support governmental sectors in water resource management plans will benefit all. Support a facilitating environment by forming water policy with respect to river basin management, regular observation and assessment of water related plans and policies, building a strong legal and governing framework, implementing strong regulation, implementing suitable mechanisms for resource allocation, sustainable information systems and data on water. All these steps, along with other nationally significant strategies, can be considered by the governments of various countries globally to support sustainable water management and reduce the risk of water scarcity worldwide. Thank you.